It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today I wanted to talk about communities. Now, I've been running a discourse community for about 10 years using the discourse software for my Linux users group. Over the years, my Linux users group has grown and shrunk and grown and shrunk, and right now it's down to about the only two of us that were the founders that meet. We meet virtually once a month, but we do keep the discourse page up in case people want to know when we're meeting or what we've got going on. I used to post a lot more on there about things that I found out there in the Linux and open source world as well. I haven't been as active just because I've got so much other stuff going on. But recently the discourse kind of crashed on me and freaked me out a little bit. I luckily had a backup, so I was able to pull things back from at least, it was a month earlier. There wasn't a lot of action anyways, but still, it just kind of hurt to have to do that. So I started thinking, do I need to run discourse? It's pretty heavy for just what we do with it. And I started looking around for other options, and I came across Flarum. Now, I really like it. It's very simple. It's very easy to set up. It's got some pretty great features and things like that. So I thought I'd show you guys how to set this up in case you had a community you were getting ready to set up or something you were looking for in the same vein. I think this is a really, really cool option. I think you're going to like it, and it's pretty straightforward to get it set up. Now, the one thing I will say is you may want to have a fully qualified domain name to run this. If you're going to run it out on the internet, you definitely want to have that, and you want to be able to put that behind a Let's Encrypt certificate, but we'll go through those things as well. So we're going to get into how to use Flarum, but first I want to go through what it just looks like and a little bit of an overview for you. I know you guys prefer the overview first and then the install second, so I'm going to put it in that direction. Before I do any of that though, I want to say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon. I cannot tell you how much it means to me that you support this content every month. It is just the greatest thing in the world. I just really can't tell you how much it means that you want to support me, that you want to support open source by doing that, because I do contribute that back to the open source community, and it just means a lot. So thank you so much. To everybody that does a one-off, buy me a beer, buy me a PayPal, man, that just makes my day when I get one of those notifications. You guys are awesome. Again, can't say thank you enough. It really does mean a lot to me that you want to do that. And for everybody who subscribes, I appreciate it. That helps the channel grow. That helps the reach of the channel. That helps more people learn about amazing open source software and everything that's out there. So thank you so very much. And if you haven't done so, go down and click on that thumbs up so that people know you like the video. Click on the subscribe button and make sure to hit those notifications so you're notified about other videos about incredible open source offerings out in the world. With that, let's get started, and we're going to get into the installation, or actually, we're going to get into the UI overview of Flarum. So this is essentially what you get when you first set up Flarum. Now, I've added a few posts here already, so you don't have those things, but you have pretty much a blank slate. But when you set it up, you set up an administrative user, and you can go in and change the administrative user's information through the user interface, or you can set that up in the Docker Compose, and we'll go through that later. But there are some profile settings here, so you can go in and see what your admin user looks like. And of course, you can create your own user that's maybe not an admin, but a moderator, and leave the admin for only administrative things. It's really up to you how you set this up, but it's got some pretty great stuff. So here you can just go in and click on the little thing here to see admin settings, and then here you can see this is just the icon that says, hey, this is an administrative user, so you understand kind of what these things do. You can see how many posts this person has created, discussions, likes, so on and so forth, and then you've got some settings here as well. So you can change your password or your email address. You can see what your notification settings are, and you can change those things. And then down here, of course, you've got some automatically follow, notify, things like that. So choices that each user is going to have inside of their profile, really. And then you have security as well, so you can get some developer tokens created. You can see the active sessions that are going on, and you can do a global logout to log your user out of all the sessions they might be logged into. Next thing up is just settings in general. So there's a good bit of settings here. Now, there's the account settings, which we've already kind of talked about. And this is really, again, just your personal settings. It's just a different way to get to it. So you went to it through the actual profile user, and then you can get to it up here. If you talk about the administration of Flarum, it's a little bit different. You can kind of see this dashboard. You can see some things about it. So you can see the PHP, the MySQL version, all the stuff that it's running. And I'm using a Docker Compose that someone made. It's from a person that I've used their Docker Compose in the past. Their username is TIredOfIT on GitHub. So I appreciate that this person goes out and makes these really great Docker Compose systems. It's pretty awesome, and it makes it easy to get things up and running. I did have to modify it a little bit, so I'll show you my modifications from what he had originally. But just to make it work, because he was using Trafic as his reverse proxy and I use Nginx Proxy Manager, I had to modify it a little bit to get that to work. When you look at the dashboard, you can kind of see all the different things you have here. So you can see my language is set to English. You can change the language if you need to. And then you have Markdown turned on. And you can see the things that are turned on because they're a little bit darker here. The things that are not dark yet are not turned on, but it's easy to go and turn those on, and I'll show you that in a minute. When we look at just the basics, it's got what is your site name. Now I set this inside of the Docker Compose, but I suppose you could change it here. Your forum description, if you want one, you can set that here as well. I haven't done that yet. And then home page, what do you want to see? All discussions. That's pretty much the only option right now. If you have a welcome banner, what does it say? So this did have a welcome banner and I closed it earlier, but I'll show you that when we do the install in a little bit. And then user display name, so you can see the username, or you can change that and set it to be their nickname, and you can allow people to change their nicknames as well. So basically the slug driver, I wouldn't mess with it unless you know what you're doing, but you can change that as well. And then of course save your changes. As we go down, there's email settings, so it's really important that once you get your actual site up, if you're not just doing testing, you want to go and set up your email settings. So here you can see choose the driver. You'd probably want to go down and set up SMTP. Maybe you're using Mailgun, but if you're using SMTP, go in and create, put in all of your SMTP settings, save your changes, and then run a test to make sure that it actually gets received. You've got some permissions set up as well. Now they come out with two roles defined. One is admin, one is mod. You can go through and kind of set this up to have multiple roles with their own permissions for each role. It's really kind of cool, and I like the way that they've set this up. So you can kind of go through here and see like, hey, here's my read permissions that I have. And you can see this is an admin. Right here is everybody, and then I think this is probably this is a mod maybe with the lightning bolt. Yes. And then this is just kind of a user, I guess. So you search users, everybody. And then sign up is open. So you can close the sign up if you don't want people to be able to sign up for your site. It just depends on why you're running your site as to whether or not you may want to have open signups or not. You want to definitely kind of watch for bots and things like that. Who can start a discussion, which is pretty much anybody. And you can see that can be members, admins, and mods. Now you can go and add a new group, and then you can add those people to who is allowed to do these things. And it just depends on kind of how you set up the hierarchy of what you want. But you could have something that's like level 2. So maybe you want people with level 2 to be able to do things. And is there a plural like mods? No, there's really not. But we'll just say level 2s. Okay, sure. We can give them a color here. So we can just click on this and we can say, let's give them this color. You can give them an icon as well. I don't know the F8 icons that well, but you can go out to Font Awesome. And if you I think this is list icons. I didn't really want to list. Font Awesome has a pretty decent search as I recall. Let's look at free icons. Okay, quite a limited set. That's great. We can find something. Let's give our level 2 users this one. FA solid FA terminal. Let's just call it that. Let's do that one. Let's see if that comes up. There we go. Now look. There's our level 2s. Okay, we've added that. We can go in now and start saying, hey, who's allowed to do these things? So this is pretty much everybody, I'm guessing. This is global. So yeah, everyone. And you can see here's our new person here. So as we go down, you've got create. Who can start discussions? Do we want to allow that for everyone, or do they need to be level 2s? We can just do level 2s, and then we don't have to have the members. And then that's admins, members, mods. We want to click everybody who can do these things. You don't just want to pick the one thing. But you see what I'm saying about you can kind of create your own groups, and then you can add those permissions for those groups through here, and it becomes pretty easy, right? So I really like the permission settings, but pretty great. So once you've done that, you've set it, great. Appearance, I like this too. So you can change your colors here a little bit. You can set it to dark mode. I'll show you what that looks like. I didn't like the dark mode that much. It's not quite enough contrast for me in a lot of cases. So I'm leaving it on light mode. So I apologize for the bright video today. But and then whether you want the colored header up here. So if you turn that off, this is what it looks like. And it just turns it to the same color as the background. I like the color when it separates it a little bit from the rest of the page. And then of course you have users, so you can go through and edit, modify your users if you're an administrative person. Now there are extensions that you can get. I haven't put any extensions on this system. This is what it comes with by default, but I did go in and turn a bunch of these on. So most of these are off by default. There might be one that was on, I can't remember. But yeah, so as you go through, you can turn these things on, and just depending on what you turn on will depend on if it has any settings. So in this case, I turned on emoji. There's no permissions around it. So you could do something if it did. Now on flags, I turned on flagging. And then it says the community guidelines URL. So if you're going to allow people to flag a post as inappropriate or something, you want to have some kind of guidelines that let your users know, hey, what is considered inappropriate on this forum, so that they can go see that. So you want to put in something that sends them to a URL to tell them about what's inappropriate, and then allow users to flag their own posts. I don't know why they would do that, but I guess you could turn that on if you wanted to. And then save your changes, and then it says who can do this, who can flag posts, and it's just telling you members can flag posts, and who can view flagged posts is just administrators and moderators, so they can go through and see, like, do I need to remove this, or is it an okay post and the person misunderstood it, that kind of thing. You have likes, again, who's allowed to do likes, everybody basically, all the way up. You have this thing called lock, so you can lock a discussion if it's just sat for a long time and nobody's added to it, and you don't want people reviving like 4-year-old discussions that have no context anymore. You could turn this on. So if you turned it on, you just hit enable, and it's going to come up with some permissions about who can do that. So again, moderators and admins are set, but maybe I say, you know what, I also want to allow my level 2 people to lock these posts. So I add them to it. I turned on Markdown because I do like using Markdown in my posts. And then let's see, mentions. So yeah, I turned on, enabled it, and then allow username mention format of the @username. And then it says permissions right here, which is create. Do you want to allow somebody to to create these things? So again, you could just set that to whatever. I'm just going to leave it as that. I don't know why they set it as the admin, but I would imagine anybody can use the @mentions. So you also have the nicknames. This is different from the username. So do you want to allow people to set their own nickname? And you can say yes. And then it says you must select nickname as the display name driver on the basic page. So we'd have to go back to the basic page. And then there should be display name. So we would pick nickname in this case, save changes. And then we can go back down to nicknames. And that little warning goes away. So it guides you through setting everything up, which is pretty great. And then allow people to edit nicknames on registration, randomize usernames, no. Require unique nicknames. I turned that on because I don't want people to all have the same nickname, Bob or something. And then regular expression for validation. And then you can set a minimum, maximum, but set to 1. I changed it to 3 because I thought, okay, at least 3 letters for a nickname. And then maximum nickname length is 150, which is probably pretty long. You might want to tone that down a little bit, but that's where I left it. And then permissions, again, everybody can do this. Pusher, I did not turn on. I guess this does some kind of push notification about new posts and things like that. I just didn't turn it on yet. We can turn it on and see what it does. Yeah, so it wants to know the app ID, the app key. So you got to have an API for this to work. So I'm just going to turn it back off because I don't really care. Statistics. So I did turn this on, which is cool. So you can see here's a little bit of statistics. And as your site grows and more people post, this might be useful for you to kind of see. Stickies, do we allow people to make sticky notes? Yes, admins and mods can sticky different posts, which is awesome. And then subscriptions, can people subscribe, basically follow a thread or a conversation? Again, yes. And then can I suspend people if they need to be suspended? And again, admins and moderators can do that. You could create other groups that could do that as well if you wanted to. And then tags. So yeah, I think tags are really useful in these types of things where you want to have people be able to filter and find stuff very quickly, or they may want to follow something specific. So you can add your tags that you really want, your primary tags. You can add secondary tags as well. So there's a lot of tagging built in, but it lets you make tags on the fly as well. And it tells you here, like, who can create tags is the admins, and then who can moderate tags is admins and moderators. So again, you can make changes to the permissions of who you want to have those tags when you're ready. So that's really all of the setup. Now, as you go through, this will log you out over time. So if you're not active for a little while, it'll kick you out. I didn't see any settings for changing that, so it's decent for a security setup anyways. But you can see I've got this currently just set up as latest is going to be at the top. You can say how many, which ones have the most replies or views, newest, oldest, kind of whatever you want to have here on the list, and how you want to sort it. We do have tags, so we can go here to the general tag and we can filter by what's got the general tag on it. Now, I created some ad hoc tags as I went along and it didn't show those, so You may have to search to see those things, but yeah, so we go to following. I'm not following anything, so we can just go back to the home page here. But it did get the general tag. I just didn't have any other tags for it to use. So if you try to do ad hoc tags, that's not going to work. But you can see here it's the administrator who posted these things. And as you go through, you can see like I want to see this, or you can take actions. So I want to follow this. If you're the person that created it, rename it, or an admin, you can rename it. If you want to edit the tags, if you want to sticky it so it stays at the top of the list, you can do that. If you want to lock it, of course. And then if you want to delete it, you can. So let's just let's add. I don't have any tags in here, but let's just go in and look. And you see, please help. This is something that I would normally delete because it doesn't have any context in the title. So this particular tagline doesn't have any context. So for me, this is not a good topic, a good way to do this. I would probably delete it, but if I read it and I thought, okay, I've got context, then I would go in here and I would just rename it so that it had a little bit more context for people who are coming in to look at it. Like this one is better. It says it's a question, and is this, is home labbing really worth it? What's the deal? Maybe it's this one. This is my first post, so everybody's happy. Yay. But there you go. I mean, this is really, if you want to create a new post, you start a discussion, give it a title. This is my 4th post on this platform, and I spelled 4th wrong. And then you can go in here and start typing. So you've got all the little controls down here to help you with any kind of formatting, but you can also use Markdown for your formatting. So it's kind of up to you how you want to format that. But if I do £, 3 pounds, I can do new game server. I could say I'm setting up a Flarum game server. And then if I want to, I can go out and I can create a link to the Flarum game site here, which is awesome. If you've never played Flarum, I have a video on it. It's one of the funnest games. We just have a blast playing here at home. But I can go here and I can create a link, and I can paste my link in right there. And now we've got our link. Now I could have done that with just Markdown by just adding these things, but you see that the buttons work as well. I have and I can put my tick, not cancel, tick, Docker compose, tick for this game server and for Watchtower to keep it running. So whenever you do this, and I spelled tower like I'm from Old England, which I'm not, there we go, and then you can post, and it's going to ask you for a tag. Now, I can just say bypass the tag and post. But what's funny is it makes you type something in, but if it's not a tag, it just goes and puts a post. So you can see here, I've got my title where I put my header. I've got the link out to Flarum, and then I've also got the Docker compose and kind of code tags. So it has pretty nice tagging, and then people can come in and they can reply. You can have a discussion, and it gives you a timeline. So I really like this. It's very clean. It's very minimal. Really something I love. And then if I go back to OSIA and I say I want to find something about Flarum, it's pretty fast, and you can see here it is. It brings me back to my post. Pretty great. Now you can also come over here and navigate to different things. So I can jump back to this one, and I can see what's going on here, and then people can start a discussion. Pretty great. I really like this thing. I think I'm going to set this up for my Linux users group. I already have the Matrix server where I ask you guys to go ahead and create a Matrix account for discussions for my own, for this channel. So I don't know if I'd set this up for this channel, but I really like this software. I think it's very clean, very neat. Now we're going to go over and I'm going to show you how to get it installed and running. All right, so we're going to start. I'm logged into the server that I want to put this on, so I'm just going to create a new folder, and I'm going to do mkdir --p docker /Flarum. Now, what this says is make a directory. The -p says check to see if this folder exists. If it does, use it. If not, create it. Then it says inside of that, check to see if this folder exists. And again, if it does, use it. If not, create it. So it does a lot of stuff all in one little command there. And now I'm going to cd change directory to docker /Flarum. And if we do an ls, you'll see there's nothing there. So we're going to do nano compose.yaml, just like that. And I'm going to paste in this YAML code, and we'll go through it together and fix a few things. So I've got some placeholders in here. So it's going to tell us, hey, here's the services I want to run. I want to run the Flarum app. Okay, so that's the first service. Now we're just going to scroll down here and look. I'm also going to run the Flarum database, which is going to be a MariaDB. And then a little bit further down is the Flarum DB backup. So it also runs a backup for you on a regular basis, which is pretty great. So I like the way that this is set up. It's kind of nice. So we're going to go down, and you can see here, it's going to use the container name Flarum app, and then this is going to be linked to Flarum DB. Now it's going to set up a couple of volumes, which is inside of this folder. The / means in the folder that's the same as where this file is. So inside of the Docker Flarum folder, there's going to be a data folder and a logs folder. Inside of there, from there, we've got the time zone. I'm going to take out this / I don't think we need it. Time zone I've set to my time zone, which is America, Chicago. You should change this to your time zone. Below that is the container name, again, Flarum app. That's set in 2 places. Don't sweat it. Admin user, right now this is admin. You can feel free to change this to whatever you want. So just know it doesn't have to be admin. In fact, we'll prove it. I'll make this my username. And then we want a nice long strong password for this. So let's get rid of this stuff inside of the angle braces, and we're going to do a nice long strong, something like that, and we'll put it in quotes. I think the exclamation points will mess things up if we don't, so let's put it in quotes too. And then we need an email address that we want to use, so I'm going to go here, and again, anything in angle brackets you want to replace, okay? So I'm going to put in brian@fixitdelrio.com. Our site title, so whatever we want for our site title, so in this case it's going to be Lubbock Lug. And that's Lubbock Linux Users Group, and then the FQDN for my site. So I'm going to make this community.lubbocklug.org. Now I need to go set a record to point community.lubbocklug.org to this site. That's going to be very important. Flarum DB, we're going to leave that's fine. The DB host, the DB name Flarum DB is fine. The DB user Flarum is fine. But this password, we want to make this a nice long strong password. Again, we want to get rid of these angle brackets. Okay, so I'm just letting you know this has to match the values down here. So you'll see it again, DB pass, and then you'll see it again down here for the backup one, DB pass. Those 3 passwords all have to match. Okay, so that's why I have that text out there. Once you know and you're sure that everything's going to match, you can get rid of this. It doesn't have to be here. It's just a comment to let you know, like, hey, don't forget to make sure these match. So we'll go here and we'll make this something strong. So turnip, pop over, umbrella, Korg 12. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight that and copy it. And as we go through, I'll go down and I'm just going to paste that in for these 2 values down here as well. So I've still got my comments over here. So I just want to go get rid of all this stuff all the way back to that first angle bracket. And then I'm going to paste in that same password. I'm going to do the same thing down here on the DB backups for this password right here. So again, I'm going to go out here. I'm just going to get rid of this comment just to clean up the look of everything here. I'm going to go all the way back to that first angle bracket and then paste in my same password. Now up here, we've got a couple more things we want to change. So if we look at this DB, we've got this root password. We want to make this something long and strong as well. We don't want to leave it just the default. So we'll make this some other password. So we're going to do Boulder and hockey and I don't know, some other word, battlement. It didn't even have to be a real word as long as you can remember something about it. And retired 27. Okay, so we've got some nice strong passwords in these places. We've got our time zone set up on each setting. Okay, you want to make sure everything else you leave pretty much the same. We've got our time zone set, so that's good. And then we're going to go back up to the app setting here. So we've got our admin email set, we've got our site title set, and we've got our URL set. and everything else here is good. So we should be okay. Now the only thing I had to change, on the original one from TIredOfIT, he had a section up here called labels, and it had his labels for traffic in there. If you use the traffic proxy, you might want to go get his original version. I'll link to it in the show notes so that you can go and get that. But I took out that section, and then down here I just added the ports section, and I'm literally exposing 80, and that's not what you want to do if you're already using 80 for something else, which I am. So we're going to change the left side. We can always change the left side of this port mapping, just not the right side. So the left side is the host port. That's the port that I'm going to come in on when I'm looking for this page. So I want to change that to something I can remember, hopefully. So let's just make this 8225, something like that. And that's going to forward to port 80 inside the Docker container, which will get us to the site. So we're going to save with Control-O. We're going to press Enter just to confirm. We'll go down and make sure I didn't miss any places where I need to replace something. I don't see any. And the other way you can do that is use Control-W and then put in the less than arrow sign and hit Enter and see if it finds it. It did. So I've just got that comment right there about my username. So again, I can get rid of the comment. And then we can do that search one more time with Control-W and just hit Enter, and it'll search for the last thing you did, and it says it's not found. So that's great. We're going to save with Control-O and Enter, and we're going to exit the editor with Control-X. Now we've put this in. We can go ahead and do our pull. So we can do Docker compose pull. And it's going to tell me no, but expected something on line 7. Let's go see. I must have taken something else that I needed. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't see anywhere that it would have needed a colon here. I don't think I'm missing a colon anywhere. That's interesting. Let me look at that message again. Expected a colon on line 7. And let's just clear that, and we'll do Docker compose pull. There we go. So it's pulling down our images. I'll try to make sure that that's fixed before I put it in my show notes so you guys don't have to deal with any of that stuff. It doesn't take very long to pull this down, as you can see, depending on your internet speed and the resources that your server has. It'll definitely make a difference, but it does come down pretty quickly. Alright, that's the finished pulling. Now I do need to go set up an actual entry in my DNS so that I'll have this pointing to the right place. So I need the IP address of my server, and I'm going to grab that and go set up that A record real quick. Here in my DNS setup, I'm just going to add an A record for the subdomain. I'm going to type in community. Then I'm going to paste in the IP address and save, and now I've got that domain name pointed to the public IP address of my server. While I'm waiting on my A record to update, I do want to add one thing to this container, and I'll explain why. So I'm going to put in this part about my networking setup. So I use a network, and it's a default network inside of Docker here, and it's just it leads to an external connection, and the name is my main net. And I'm just going to fix the spacing on that. I'm going to save this with Control-O and then Enter and Control-X. And then I'll show you why I did that. So here in my Nginx Proxy Manager, you can see that on this server, I can refer to an application by its container name. So I can actually point it using the port and the container name in order to access that container's information. And I want to do the same thing with that. So I've set up that. So I'm setting that up so that when I start the container, it'll be on the network that I need that runs on the same network as Nginx Proxy Manager, and I can go and set up that actual container to run correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to say community.lubbock.org, and I'm going to hit tab. So what I've done is I went and I created an A record that points to this server, this public IP address of this server. So if anybody goes to community.lubbock.org, it's going to say, oh, hey, I see that. I'm going to send you over to this server. It's going to come to this server, and it's going to hit Nginx Proxy Manager, and Nginx is going to go, oh, yeah, I have an entry for that. Let me send you to the right place. So I want to make sure that it sends me to the right system, and then I'll put in the port that I set and everything like that. So if we go back and just look really quick, we can just look at our compose file. I do need to change this port because I didn't change it from 80. But I don't actually have to even expose this port. I should be able to just get to this port from the inside. So I'm just going to put, in fact, I'll leave this for now, but I'm going to comment it out. So I'm going to put a comment mark here and a comment mark there. I'm going to save that. And so I'm basically not exposing this port because of the way that I'm doing this reverse proxy. Now, if you're not using the same network as your Nginx proxy manager, you would want a port exposed, and then you would want to just put in the IP address of the server and the port number for that server, and it would try to go to that port. So that's the only difference in what we're setting up here. But I'm going to go and I'm going to Control X out of that, and I'm going to say docker compose up -d 2 ampersands docker compose logs -f, and I have 2 S's there. There we go. Now when I hit this is going to run 2 things. It's going to run my docker compose up command, and it's going to tell it, hey, run it in the background once it gets running. And once it starts running, it's going to show me the log output, and it's going to show it to me live. So it's going to follow the logs so I can see if there's any errors or any things like that. So I'm going to hit enter. It's going to try to start these things up. It's going to give me some output here, which I expect. And it's trying to get the servers going. It's trying to get the database up and running. So it may tell you at first, like, hey, I couldn't connect to the database, or hey, there was something weird going on. But you should come up at some point, and it's going to tell you, like, hey, things are running. So it's saying creating the databases. Could take some time, just depends. It does start a Zabbix agent. I'm not sure if he just included a Zabbix agent so that you could set that up to work with any kind of Zabbix server you have running, but I do want to check that to see, like, where is it calling out to, because I don't want this just calling out randomly to any Zabbix server out there. But other than that, everything looks like it's running. It's got cron started. Everything here looks good. So I just have to make sure that my DNS is updated to actually get me to the right server. So if I just do ping community.lubbock.org, it should show me the correct DNS, and it does. So now, if I go back into here, I should be able to figure out what's that Docker container called. So I'll do docker compose ps. And if we look for the name, it is Flarum app. Flarum-app. So that's what I'm going to put in here, is just Flarum-app, and it's on 80 inside of the container. So since I'm forwarding my request to the container, I want to use the internal container port. If I was not doing that, I would put in the IP address of this server and then the other port that I could have mapped to it. So just keep that in mind. And I'll have all of this in the show notes so it's more clear for you. I'm going to turn these 2 things on, and first I'm just going to save, because Nginx Proxy Manager has a weird quirk that sometimes it doesn't save when you do this stuff. So I'm going to go back in here, I'm going to hit edit, I'm going to go to SSL, I'm just going to tell it pull a new certificate, force SSL, I agree, and I'm going to enable all of these other options here as well. I'm going to say save. So it's going to go out to Let's Encrypt and say, hey, I have a site running here at this URL. See if you can reach it on port 80, and if you can, issue me a certificate so that I get Let's Encrypt protection, so it's always SSL encrypted. So if this just goes away with no error, then we've got that encrypt certificate, which it just did. And now you can see right here it says Let's Encrypt. So we're just going to click, and it should bring us to our Flarum page if everything's running. And it did. There we are. We're on Flarum. Now, if you remember, I created an admin user with the name Brian. So I'm just going to log in with Brian. And I got to go grab whatever the password was that I created, because it was something kind of crazy. Cat compose.yaml. And I'll go up here, and this is the password right here. And of course, I'm going to go change all of these things, guys. Don't worry that you're seeing them. As soon as this is done, I'm going to go change all of these passwords and destroy everything and recreate it. Don't worry. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to paste in this password, and I am logged in. So I can just tell this, don't worry about it. Now, of course, this is small, but I'll zoom it up here. And again, I've got these options to go in and change my profile. I can go in and see the settings for my user. And of course, I can go in and do the administration side of things. And this is really how it starts when you first get in here. You can see there's your dashboard. You've got your basics, the things that you need to go set. And don't forget, if you want to use the nickname, you need to set that as the driver for what people are going to be known by. But it's up to you how you kind of set these things. So you'll have to go back into basics and change some of those things as you go along. You've got your email. Now, I have not set up email, but remember, you're going to go in and set up SMTP email, set up your host, your port, your encryption level. So if it's TLS or SSL, you need to know that. The username and the password that you're going to use to send email. So for me, I'm going to set up like a no reply at lubbock.org, and it'll have its own password. That way, whenever something goes out from here, I know that it's from this server. or you can set up community at lubbockload.org. Whatever you want, I mean, for your domain, of course. Save your changes and then send a test email just to make sure it's working. Go through and set up your permissions, set up any extra roles you might want. Go in and change your appearance if that's what you're looking for. So right now I've got the dark reader. That's why this looks like it's dark. It's not actually dark mode, it's light mode. But you can go in and set dark mode and you can just see what their dark mode looks like. And then you can say change the color of the header. And maybe you just like the default look. It didn't really change much when I did that, but we could change that to something else. Let's change it to a nice, let's put it as a dark blue. And let's put this as a nice light color over here. And let's see what that looks like. It didn't do anything. That's crazy. Okay, interesting. Let's try again. Weird. I don't know. It works on the other side, so we'll figure that out later. There's always quirks. Users, of course, you can go in and set users. So down here, you'll notice none of these plugins are on. And there are other plugins you can go and get and set up for this, but just out of the gate, it has a lot already in it. So if you want to have emoji, you just go in here and click on enable. Give it just a second and it enables it. If you want to have the flagging, you can go in and enable it. And then, of course, there's going to be some permissions around that one. So you need to select, like, is there some kind of guidelines that you want to have? Put your URL in, of course, and then add whichever roles you want to be able to do that. Same thing for each one of these. Just go through and click on, yes, I want to allow likes, lock if you want to lock it, markdown if you like markdown. It makes it easier to put things in posts, in my opinion. Yeah, so you get all kinds of really cool kind of settings here, so you can go through and turn these on, but you definitely need to go and turn them on yourself. And maybe you don't want everything. Maybe you just want a few of these things and not everything else, or maybe you want to go see what other plugins are out there for Flarum, but I think it's a really cool system. We've got it up and running. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.